Part 3, Shared Realities. Chapter 7, Stories that Hold Societies Together. Imagine someone handing you a $20 bill. You accept it without hesitation. You might place it in your wallet, exchange it for food, use it to purchase a book, or deposit it into a bank account. The transaction feels entirely ordinary. Yet if we pause for a moment, something remarkable becomes visible. The paper itself has little intrinsic value. Its usefulness depends almost entirely upon a shared belief. Millions of people agree that it represents something. And because they agree, it works. This pattern appears throughout civilization. Money is only one example. Nations exist because people believe in them. Laws function because people accept them. Corporations persist because people recognize them. Universities endure because generations inherit their legitimacy. Even rights depend upon shared recognition. None of these realities can be touched in quite the same way that a mountain or a river can be touched, yet they exert enormous influence over human life. This raises a fascinating question. How do large groups of people coordinate around things that exist primarily in the realm of shared belief? How do millions of strangers come to inhabit the same social reality? The answer begins with stories. The word story can be misleading. Many people hear the word and think of fiction, entertainment, myths told around campfires. Yet stories perform a far deeper function in human life. Stories organize experience. Stories explain the world. Stories communicate values. Stories identify heroes and villains. Stories tell people who they are. And perhaps most importantly, stories allow large groups of people to coordinate around shared meanings. In the previous chapters, we explored how human beings are social creatures who learn from one another and organize themselves into groups. We then examined how people interpret reality through different lenses, moral intuitions, and visions. Now another layer appears. Human beings do not merely inhabit physical realities. They inhabit narrative realities as well. The stories people share help determine what becomes meaningful, admirable, legitimate, sacred, or worth sacrificing for. Consider a nation. A nation is more than a geographic territory. It is also a story about origins, identity, purpose, belonging, memory. A shared narrative helps transform millions of strangers into something capable of acting collectively. Without the story, the territory remains, but much of the nation disappears. The same principle appears in families and organizations, religions, communities, civilizations. Every enduring human group possesses stories about who we are, where we came from, what we value, what we fear, what we hope for. These stories help transform collections of individuals into coherent social realities. This does not mean the stories are necessarily false, nor does it mean they are literally true in every detail. Their significance lies elsewhere. Stories create orientation. They provide frameworks through which people understand themselves and the world around them. A story can shape behavior whether or not every element of the story is historically precise. What matters is that people act as though the story is meaningful, and often they do. The historian Yuval Noah Harari has argued that one of humanity's most distinctive capacities is the ability to cooperate around shared fictions. Whether one agrees fully with that description or not, the insight points towards something important. Human beings possess an unusual ability to coordinate around ideas that exist primarily in collective imagination. Money, corporations, legal systems, national identities. These realities are not physical objects, yet they become socially real because enough people believe in them simultaneously. Seen from this perspective, civilization begins to appear as a vast web of shared stories. Some stories explain where we came from, some explain how society should function, some define what is admirable, some establish obligations and expectations. Together they create a common world within which large-scale cooperation becomes possible. This helps explain why stories can be extraordinarily powerful. People rarely sacrifice themselves for spreadsheets. Few people devote their lives to statistics. Human beings are moved by meaning, purpose, identity, belonging. Stories connect abstract ideas to lived experience. They transform information into significance. The power of stories also helps explain why conflicts over narratives can become so intense. When people disagree about a story, they are often disagreeing about much more than facts. They may be disagreeing about identity, purpose, legitimacy, memory. The disagreement touches the framework through which reality itself is interpreted. This is one reason narrative conflicts can feel so emotionally charged. The story is not merely being questioned. The world organized around the story is being questioned as well. Yet stories are not only sources of conflict, they are also sources of continuity. Civilizations remember through stories. Values travel through stories. Knowledge survives through stories. Generations inherit identities through stories. Long after individual lives have ended, stories continue carrying meaning forward. In this sense, stories function as one of civilization's memory systems. They allow human beings to transmit more than information. They transmit significance. A pattern should now be becoming visible. In Part 1, we discovered that human beings are social creatures. In Part 2, we explored how they interpret reality through different lenses and moral worlds. Now we arrive at a realization that connects those insights. Human beings do not merely perceive reality, they create shared realities. And stories are among the primary tools through which those shared realities are constructed and sustained. The result is one of the most remarkable features of civilization. Large groups of people can cooperate around ideas that no individual could create alone, and no individual can sustain alone. The stories become larger than any one person, yet they continue shaping countless lives. Civilization emerges not only from roads, buildings, institutions, and technologies, it emerges from shared meaning. And shared meaning is often carried through stories. Closing orientation. Human beings are storytelling creatures, not merely because we enjoy stories, but because stories help us inhabit a common world. They create identity, transmit values, preserve memory, coordinate behavior, and make large-scale cooperation possible. Much of civilization rests not only upon physical infrastructure, but upon narrative infrastructure, invisible frameworks of meaning that allow millions of strangers to participate in the same social reality. To understand civilization, we must learn to see those stories, because they are often among the strongest forces shaping the world around us. If stories help create shared realities, another question naturally emerges. What happens when enough people believe the same thing simultaneously? How do invisible agreements become social facts? How does belief itself create realities that shape human behavior? To answer those questions, we must explore the strange and powerful phenomenon of shared belief and collective meaning.